Welcome to the Sold Too Early Sports Card Podcast, where all I want for Christmas is you to think smarter. That's not Kai. I'm a Nikola Jokic truther. There you go, Shane. I apologized. A little bit over a year late, but hey, just like some Christmas gifts I bought for people, they were on back order.
We'll try next year.
Yeah, exactly. I like to meet some expectations. Not all of them. Kai was unavailable today due to traveling for Christmas. So we have Tyler, HotCorner1326. Of course, every Instagram name has a combination of numbers after them. Tyler, how the hell you doing, man? Merry Christmas.
I'm great, man. Merry Christmas to you as well. Happy holidays.
Yes, sir. How's everything been with you?
It's been great. It's nice to be able to actually slow down a little bit after it's been a long few months of shows. It's been busy to say the least. And this is, that time of year where everything starts to kind of slow down and then you kind of ramp back up in late January, early February next year. So,
well, the thing is, too, I mean, you were at the Macau Card Show, which we'll get into. Once again, I want to thank Tyler because he was able to actually travel to that show. You were there for, what, a week, 5 days? How long were you actually in Macau for?
I was in Macau for 4 days.
Okay, but, so you actually...
Yeah. I was in Hong Kong before, and then they're right next to each other. So, initially when people were looking up the show, they were looking at flights to Hong Kong. To Macau, because some people they're unfamiliar with the geography, don't realize that Hong Kong and Macau are an hour away. And so, you were looking at flights to Macau. It's like, oh my gosh, it's 3 layovers in Taipei and Beijing, and it's going to cost me $6,000 to get there. No, I'm not going. But if you fly into Hong Kong, it's an easy hour ferry or bus ride over there, and it's way cheaper because there's so many flights that go in and out of Hong Kong. So
I'm sure we're gonna have plenty of time to talk about that. That was one of the things I was looking forward to actually speaking about for weeks now, because that show was in early December, and this episode will launch obviously right after Christmas. But honestly, this is such a good time to reflect back on cards in general. We're at the end of the year, and I think it's one of those things where you're able to sit back, relax, and all right, what did I do well in 2023? What do I feel like the card market's gonna be like in 2024? And how do I game plan accordingly? So when I look back at this past year, I mean, the main thing that I personally think of, besides the growth and success of Sold Too Early, which, dude, this podcast has become what motivates me to do cards more. Yeah. I think it's something that just you put your name behind something, you grow it, you make some fun, you piss off enough people, you get into trouble. But I think
that's half the fun.
Dude, a lot of people have been so kind and nice about the Sold Too Early, and when they come up at shows and say, "Hey, I'm a listener, I'm a fan. This is great." You have a way of saying things that people may not like, but you're right, honest. That shit is much more entertaining and much more meaningful to me than any kind of deal. And when I look back and think of the last year, it really is those connections with people, both our friend group and random people who listen, that I think much more fondly about than any kind of financial success that happened this past year.
Right.
Maybe that's because when I do my taxes for 2023, I'm going to have a 50% decrease in sales. But no, listen, cards give me a lot of things in life. I think the people do make it, and I think this is an industry where you have to poke fun at it whenever you can, because, dude, it's trading cards. This is not so serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people do, especially the people that go to all the shows, and you see a lot of the same faces over and over, and a lot of the level of seriousness is just generally way too high for what we do. People need to I was talking to the guys who I went to Macau with were Chris Wong and Coleman Cards. Yep. And a couple of things we were talking about a lot when we were there is dude, we're working right now, and we're just chilling in Hong Kong. And we're playing with baseball cards. How many people get to say that they do this and have, are actually able to make a living out of it? And it shouldn't be taken too serious. Why would you take anything too seriously? It's just I don't know. We're blessed to do what we do. But.
Well, there is something to being serious when it comes to negotiating deals. I mean, obviously, you are talking about, in some instances, tens of thousands of dollars in difference in price, and for some individuals, that could be their entire money they take home after a year. But outside of those very particular times when like you're not discussing an actual tangible deal, you can let your guard down a smidge. You can be a comfortable person. Now, I'm not telling you to throw your cards willy-nilly into the air and like see whatever happens, but you can be a human being. It's okay to like just chill. You don't have to hashtag grind every hashtag second. You can, sit, chill, relax. Dude, after the last Dallas Card Show, when that was right before Thanksgiving, I believe, I've been hanging out for a month. Like, I've been very comfortable, just like, hey, I'm gonna relax. Like, hey, this is some good time off. Let me take this, because I know that when the show schedule starts to come out for 2024 and I start to travel, I'm like, man, I wish I was like home. I wish I was like relaxing. Like, why am I like just killing myself right now over this stuff when I know no matter what, there's still more deals to be made? And if you look at how the finances have kind of shifted in the last month, I kind of made the right call, because shit is still dropping, 10-20% week over week. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. It could definitely get exhausting. Like, if you don't take those breaks and, take a step back, you can burn out pretty quickly.
You have an interesting perspective too, because you do cards full time, but you have other avenues as well. So like you kind of walk this like very nice balance between like, I can do whatever I want in sports cards and I can just chill, versus like, oh, I don't need to like grind every single day for a deal, because you really do you found this perfect balance between like everything you're trying to do to achieve pretty good success, which I think is very admirable. Like,
appreciate it.
Well, you have a real perspective too. You're actually a human being. When you talk to people who do cards full time, they generally lean like, man, cards are amazing and this is the greatest thing ever, and like they'll never go down all the way. But that's not realistic. I think we have seen, especially over the last year, that car prices are down, and it's concerning, and it's something to keep in mind, because hey, we had this incredible growth for such a long amount of time, and if you only got into sports cards really in 2018, 2019, 2020, you've only seen growth. You do need decay, you do need some decrease, because that actually sets a realistic market as time goes on.
Yeah, a lot of people were burned, unfortunately. A lot of misguided people were putting their money into things that they didn't fully understand, and what happened, and it was the correction we were all expecting for a long time, but it's just been kind of drawn out now, and like certain stuff is still strong, and you can really, that I'll get into that more when I talk more about the Macau show, but it's definitely come back to reality, and it's still looking at numbers now versus like early 2020. We're still in a great spot. Yes. And the interest has never been higher. It's like, as far as like the collector side of things.
That's the funny thing about this too, is that like, and I've mentioned this the last few episodes, I'm not sure who collects anymore per se, especially when you look at stuff like football. Because Tyler, you do a little bit of everything. You're more of vintage and more of like interesting rare items than I would say like modern cards, right? I think that's a fair describer of you.
Yeah.
But like, in your experience and your time in collecting cards, like how do you do well with modern football cards? Modern is like the last like 20 years, let's say.
So whenever I get something modern in that's like, like over like a certain price point, let's call it like $1,000, like during the season, I try to make it a point to kind of just get in and get out, get the next guy like at a decent number. But if it used to be a lot more cyclical with like the ups and downs of like when to buy football, like a couple months before the season starts is what it was in like 2020, and then people just kept getting a little further and a little further ahead to where it's almost like the only real dip happens at the end of the season at this point. So I don't really know where the next step is. And if I'm not sure about that, I'm probably not going to go out specifically looking for modern football. That's just not something that I feel has always been like a comfort zone for me.
Yep.
I don't like the volatility that comes with it.
It's so interesting to me, because when you look back on the National, and I think that can lead to the conversation of like what you thought of this past year. The National for me was, hey, make sure you leave this place with no football cards. Like, if you own that hotshot QB, insert 20 names a year, and they're running on the field week 1, you're fucked. Like, it's just like you can't own those players. And if you really do believe in them, there is plenty of opportunity to get back in even now. But all the players that seem to really get that hype going into the National really kind of failed. Like, it was just so interesting. I was making fun of this on Christmas Day. I think I named like 12 or 15 different quarterbacks who people were buying for the hype. A lot of it just didn't work out this year. And it's so interesting because football seems to set the market for the fall and the winter in a way, because, hey, if quarterback prices are going down, what are people going to target? Bowman Chrome, I guess, but like that's really kind of like it's a very niche market with Bowman in a way, where you have to buy the certain player at this certain time, and then the second day they debut, they sell, and you move on to the next hot shot QB prospect at that point, because that's like the spring. It's just a weird market we're in, where it feels like those are the two main focuses, and then basketball, obviously, like, hey, if someone on opening night goes for 40 points, you sell. But other than that, it's a little tricky.
It is tricky is an understatement, honestly, because like if you, especially I see it as in Bowman Chrome as much as I see it in every other sport, but well, a little more. It just, if you don't have immediate success when you're hyped up going into the season and making your debut, or if you're like a young guy and you like, you know, you're not like killing it off the bat, but you start having like a really legitimately good career down the road, people don't care at that point. You missed your window. Your cards are never going to get back to where they were like during the hype, even though you probably surpassed all of the expectations you had going into your career. Like, look at a guy like Trey Turner. Why are his cards going for the way that he's like a top 5 player in baseball? But he wasn't. I mean, all things considered, what's his WAR for this year?
I don't know what Trey Turner's WAR was, but I was looking up a different shortstop for reference. I was looking up Bobby Witt Jr. Because no one is talking about Bobby Witt Jr., for instance. And Tyler, for your point, Trey Turner last year, 3.4 WAR. Bobby Witt had a 4.4 WAR. Obviously, that's not. There's way more that goes into this conversation. I was going to get to the point, if you were right there, in my opinion, on once these guys debut, but they're not on great teams or have like immediate success, they're forgotten. Like, Bobby Witt Jr. could be a top 5, top 10 player in the MLB. I don't know about Trey Turner. He got paid though. You'd think Philly fans would want him. But no one is really talking about him. The new golden child is like a Jackson Holiday, who Jackson Holiday is incredible.
Right.
But he could be anything. He could be Trey Turner. He could be Bobby Witt Jr. But if you fast forward 3 years, it'd be like, oh, this new 18-year-old prospect, he could be anything. He could be Jackson Holiday. Like, it's so funny.
I feel like the only exception that's been like, but it's like in the most drastic sense, is Ohtani, because his stuff had like a big bump when he like got into the league, and then like it like slowly trickled down to the point where like it almost felt too obvious to work. Like as far as his cards, like the way they were priced in like 2019, 2020. And,
when he got hurt. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, who would have known that the market would have turned into this at that point, though? But he's the main exception in my eyes to somebody who's just completely blown past what their initial hype was.
Well, kind of actually had this conversation last week too, because we talked about players like Soto, Tatis, Acuna, those guys, Ohtani within that timeline as well, where they're quote unquote peak seasons, or like their timing where, hey, they're going to turn into these mega stars or superstars, aligned most with like 2019, 2020, 2021 prices where everything shot up. Have they debuted now or debuted 5 years or 6 years ago, I guess I should say at this point, or actually, let me say 10 years ago, because that's more of a distinct timing, how their prices have been. And it's really hard to say. We are really in this hype outside production market, and you got to play into it. It's really interesting, but I think, we're more intelligent collectors. Like, we know it's bullshit, but we continue to play into it because, like, we have to. There's no real opportunity otherwise to really truly crush it and hit a home run on prices.
Mm.
There are ways to find, doubles and triples down the line, whatever, where like you can do pretty well. But Bowman Chrome is an all or nothing. Like you gotta crush it here at this point, or
right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And part of that's the reason that I've never really like taken to the whole investing side of it, which I get it. It's a way more fun way to like have like an asset for like a player that you love watching and love collect, but it's so rare and it's so difficult to actually like hit on something if you're like buying in like anywhere close to that hype like period of time that I don't see the EV in that. Like I don't see the point of making that like your main like
collection.
Avenue. Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, obviously, if you're a collector, listen. If you're a Royals fan, you love Bobby Wood Jr., go buy him. Bobby Wood Jr. is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, if you are truly that collector type and you want to own his stuff, please do. They're obviously affordable now because like the hype cycle has moved on to the next shiny thing. But yeah, own his cards. He's great. He's incredible. Like, that's awesome. You should want to. It's a shame that like in a vacuum, his prices, for instance, are X, but this shiny thing here is Y. And I think that kind of leads into my goals and thoughts on the last year. Just like, I think as an industry, we've gotten a little bit smarter, but it also seems to become so much more evident when people just put money first in the sports card world. And obviously, there's no way of fixing that or changing that. But I think one thing that I realized a lot this past year is when you deal with people who truly only care about the money and not the actual sports or sports cards behind it, it has become so clear just based on how the market has reacted over the last 12 months.
Big time. And a lot of the people like I don't know when we're gonna get into it, but a lot of people in Macau that I met and talked to, and just like the interactions that I had, is like the number of people in that room that care about the money over the cards is so small. Like people are there for the cards.
That's awesome. All right, so let's get into it. I mean, this is something that I've been very curious about. So Tyler's not prepping on any of this information. I'm really curious to hear this for the first time. So first off, just like talk to me. What was the Macau show like? Like, in the best way you can describe it, what was it, and how did it feel?
So I had no idea what to expect going into it. I just knew that it had a very high ceiling based off of like everything that we know and have heard about a lot of the collections and collectors overseas, especially in Asia, and that a lot of those big guys would be going there. And fortunately, that's what we ended up seeing. I've never seen a show that had such high quality like average for showcases. Like it pretty much every case you saw had like a few logo men in it, like type of crazy stuff. Like it was wild. There wasn't a lot of showcases. It was probably like 100 dealers that were actually like there to deal. There was a lot of like vendors for like card hobby, eBay, etc. But for as far as like the people that were there to set up like a traditional show like you would see in like 800 tables in Dallas, it was probably like 100.
Wow.
Like,
so it's actually kind of small.
Yeah. It was relatively small. It was about 4 rows of people that were like set up, and I was there for like the entirety of each of the 3 days of the show, and I did not get bored for a second.
That's awesome. I have one other question I'm going to ask first. Yeah. What was the cost for you getting to the show and like staying there? I mean, you mentioned you went to Hong Kong first, so you can include that. You can not. But like, how much was it cost for you to get to that show, be there for a couple days, and get home?
The flight was in like the 1,500 range. I came from Chicago, had a layover in LA. So that was round trip. Nice. But the table itself, I split it 3 ways. It ended up being in like the 2,500 range, but I know that's a lot, but it included your suite at the hotel that we were at, which was very nice.
Wait. So that was set up through the show. If you had booked the table, wow.
which is the first time I've seen that, and that was pretty interesting. And they had it at the Venetian. If you're familiar at all with the Las Vegas Venetian, it's essentially the same exact thing. So the rooms are huge.
All in, are you saying it was $2,500 with the room plus the showcase, or is that including your flight? Just making sure I'm.
The showcase was like $12 to rent, so I didn't even really make that. Like, I didn't really throw that in.
Yeah,
but
so all in.
So all in was probably like $4,000. Yes, but that was if you split it three ways, so call it $1,000 for simplicity, and then so like 2,500, $3,000.
Dude, that's not that bad. I'm actually kind of shocked to hear that, because one thing that I was concerned about was even that flight, because I could see that easily being $2,000 plus. I mean, the fact that you got $1,500 round trip. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
What's also crazy is that since you're going to be flying out of the East Coast, if you do it next year, you're probably going to go the other direction around the world.
Oh my God, I'm going to fly,
which is hilarious when you think about it. You'll probably go over the Atlantic. Because I had one other flight option. I ended up going with the one that had a layover in LA, but I almost did one that had a layover in
JFK,
Belgium or something.
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh.
And that was almost quicker because the layover wasn't as long. But
how long is the flight? What, 14 hours in the air?
14 from LA. So it was it's 4.5 to get to LA from Chicago for me.
Oh my God! So you literally traveled across the world for sports cards for 4 days for the show, but I imagine you made it a vacation, obviously. So
of course, yeah. I was there for there was obviously additional expenses for me because me, Chris, and Coleman, but we're in Hong Kong for a few days after that, but optional.
Well, if you go to the show, which I may consider doing, make a vacation out of it, please. Like, do not just go there for sports cards, please. Like, actually be a human being. One thing I was also very curious about was, were there any like language barriers or like obstacles as a result of like not knowing? I imagine Chinese.
There's two like Chinese mainly two Chinese languages. It's Mandarin and Cantonese.
Okay.
And
uncultured white person. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, it's okay. The only reason I know this is because Chris, one of the guys I went with, is like pretty close to fluent in Cantonese because he lived in Hong Kong for the first 13 years of his life. So he's he's got that under control. But having him was extremely valuable a couple of times. But I do know that Card Hobby and the guys who put on the show offered to give you a translator for an additional fee, which could be invaluable if you decide to go that route.
That is awesome. I can only imagine like whether it was language barriers or like cultural barriers. Like, I could see that being a 100% rough point if like you were not aware. The fact that Card Hobby even offered that is incredible. That shows like actual like foresight and thinking for dumb Americans like me who would not know any better. By the way, not sponsored. I'm genuinely curious. So
no. But the language barrier itself was not significant. Like, for the most part, they knew enough English to where we could communicate on it like pretty directly. But I only had to use my like Google Translate app a couple times, and it was just like for basic stuff. But the bigger barrier, not language, is currency. Okay. Because there were several types of different currency flying around, and depending what people wanted became an issue at times. Like I came with like the legal amount of US, and that's all I had going into it. So it was like a little under 10,000. And so once I'm through that, like now what? So because like it's the other side of the world, the bank is going to be closed probably during the show, and it's on the weekend as well. So I was able to use PayPal a couple times, but then I sold a couple things, which was nice. But I took Hong Kong dollars in, which is the translation is like roughly like 8 to 1, or the conversion is like 8 to 1. So just whatever it ended up coming out to, pretty much everybody was willing to take USD. But if you had, which I thought was kind of interesting, like only a couple people only wanted Hong Kong. Everybody else was pretty fine with taking USD, which just shows like the strength of the American dollar. But I had a couple other types of currencies at times, and It became a barrier. I did one deal where I bought a card with 3 different types of currencies.
That's cool.
Which is pretty fun, yeah. But yeah, that was much bigger than the language barrier. So I do know that the casino offer that it's connected to a casino, the Venetian, and they offer conversion, like if you need to do any of that, but there is a fee. So I just kind of most of the time I was just walking around saying like, hey, will you take USD for Hong Kong, or will you take Macau for USD, or because Macau and Hong Kong have different currencies, but they're pretty much interchangeable.
Did you end up bringing home any of the Macau dollars or Hong Kong dollars, or no, you spent it all?
I brought some home just because I know that I'm going back next year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's cool though.
Yeah.
Listen, I like that shit. I'm actually like for the first time going to a country that doesn't use US dollars. I'm going to Greece in the summer. So I'm excited to like bring home whatever. I guess they use a euro there, right? I'm not sure. But
yeah.
I'll learn in time, I'm sure. What else do I have here? So you kind of touched on this for a little bit, but obviously the show, the dealers versus the actual room itself is different. So in terms of size, how would you compare it to a major show like a Dallas or a Burbank, just in like the show itself?
So like over half of the floor was like sponsors and stuff, just because they had like giant displays.
Yep.
And then the other remaining like whatever it was, like 100 to 200 tables was like just kind of off to the side a little more, and then but just in like 4 rows. The convention center that they use is very big. It can fill a lot more, and judging by people's reactions to the stuff that was getting posted on social media during the show, there's going to be a lot more people there next year. This was the initial one, so like if you were there, you got kind of like not lucky because you took the chance to go, but like you benefited because there was not that many people in the room. But next year I can see this turning into a really big show. There's enough people there. There's enough support. The people running it seem to have a really good grasp on what they're doing. The card hobby guys are great. They were nothing but helpful the whole time. Martel was the main guy that I was talking to a lot. Martel Chan on Instagram, and he was awesome. He was nothing but helpful the entire time.
Did you feel like a foreigner at all? I mean, I'm sure you did, but like, how did it feel to be? How'd you feel to be a foreigner in that room? Let me fix that statement.
In the room, not so much as like just actually like just walking around like Macau or Hong Kong, but like there's culture shock for sure. Yeah. And if it's not something that you're all that used to, it'll take some adjusting. But the room was intimidating, honestly.
Really?
There was like I lost track of like how many like LeBron and Kobe logo men type stuff was in the room. It was wild. I've never seen anything like it. Even if you just like enjoy, if you don't even have to make a business trip out of it. Like I wish I could do this show twice, once just for straight up fun, to walk around and like look at everything and like oh, that's an awesome card. They're just like to like appreciate it, just not like, oh, that's out of my price range, I'm not even gonna really look at it because I know that I have to, I don't only get so much time here, so I need to go back. There's a lot of relationships. So, yeah,
that's so crazy. And that actually leads into my next point too, was like, I mean, you touched on Vibe a little bit, but like, what was the experience with international collectors? Like, obviously, you're meeting a bunch of people that you never had the chance to before, like maybe talking on Instagram. Like, what was that vibe and experience like with strictly those international collectors who you might not know of before the show?
I touched on it a little bit, but how much they care about the cards as opposed to the money was very evident. And like, yeah, there was a lot of like just straight up true collectors there. There was a couple people who I did deals with that they had like a showcase that was specifically just straight up PC. Like all of it was out, a lot of cool stuff, but none of it was available for sale. However, I showed him like some of the stuff that I had, and there were a couple of cards that he wanted for his PC. Now his PC cards became available. They would trade, but they wouldn't sell. And I feel like that's something you would never see in a place like Dallas.
Yeah,
because I mean, it's they would just much rather have the cash, and that's like there's I'm not saying there's not a passion for sports cards in the U.S. and in Dallas and in those other big shows, but the extent to it is just so much greater in the Hong Kong show or the Macau show.
So they appreciate the cards more, while I don't think this is wrong to say, Americans appreciate the money more.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's shocking to say. I mean, I also would not be surprised if those cards, when they were even publicly available years ago, let's say, they overpaid at the time, but obviously like it worked out in their end when they might have 20 or 30 different logo mint autos or patch autos or anything else. Like, hey, you built like a museum here. Like, I'm sure that like kind of worked in a way.
A lot of this crazy stuff that you have never seen before but knew existed, and a couple of cards that I didn't even know existed. I have a new dream card after going to that show. I didn't know it existed until now. It's a Jordan Tiger Woods dual logo man. No, not logo man. Dual exquisite patch auto.
Okay.
But like pack pulled exquisite, like from like 07. I had no idea this card existed.
How many is it? One of one, or is there like 23
I think it's
of them? Or
three or five.
Okay.
But it's so gross. I didn't know idea it existed.
What do you think it's worth?
At auction, who knows? Because right now this is the worst time to ever auction something. But like a private sale, probably 6 figures.
Oh my god!
It's because I had no idea it existed, and there's so many massive collectors of both of those guys, and the autos on this card were just so freaking beautiful. It was nuts.
What do you think was the best, or I guess biggest deal you made at the show? And then part two of that question: what was the largest deal or best deal you made with someone you didn't know going to that show? So hey, if you made a deal with Coleman, awesome. Like, tell us about it. But then like, hey, if you met this new collector, like, what was that deal like?
I don't think I made any deals with anybody I knew before the show.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because almost everybody there were fresh faces, which was another really nice thing. Just because like all these cards that you're so used to seeing, like you see like the same and NTRPAs at every Dallas show that just keep getting in the same cases and going around to the same people. But it was like so fresh at this show. Like I have like so much of the stuff you just like haven't seen, or just like it's just like newer. But the best card that I picked up, I don't even own anymore, which is kind of sad. But
I mean, I guess you did well then.
I traded it, but it went to Gev Showtime cards. But it was this there's a Kobe.
I can kind of see it. Yeah, it looks like a 3. Oh, that's pretty. So everyone who's listening, 3-color patch auto Kobe Exquisite, BGS 910 auto, I imagine.
Yep. It's the finger pointing variation, which is like the better of the two.
Sick. But, and that's 2004?
Yeah.
Okay. Sick.
But that was pretty fun to pick up and own for like 24 hours. But
and then Gav was like, nope, no, hey man, that's mine.
Yep, that does belong in his collection, just with like the stuff that he has and what he appreciates. So
he's a good guy. Whenever he hits me up for deals, it always seems super fair. We usually get things done within 10 messages. Like he's a good guy. I like dealing with him a lot.
Yeah, he's
very
a really good guy.
But I guess other question that I didn't prep you for this, but like, who would you recommend this show for in a way? Because obviously the price point is higher than the average show, the above average show here in the US. Obviously traveling there's a bitch. Like, who do you recommend this for, knowing that it's once a year, most likely going to be in December, which is always a little tricky? Like, what do you think off of your experience?
It's very, very basketball heavy. So if you don't do a lot of basketball, it's going to be a little bit annoying. There was a lot of basketball and there was a good amount of soccer. Outside of that, there was not much. There were a couple football cards just for like, I actually saw somebody with a full showcase of Will Levis, which made me extremely happy because he barely has any cards, but that's a separate thing. But if you don't do a lot of high-end basketball, or like the stuff that you have in high-end basketball is not really rare, you probably just won't get a lot of interest. The stuff that I brought to shows that's typically really liquid at other shows didn't generate the same type of interest. They want to see the stuff that they don't see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big difference. But that, and if you like, if you just like, I don't know, don't feel comfortable traveling that far, because like I've gone on a few like long trips, but that was pretty crazy. That was a lot of traveling for a show.
Yeah,
that's literally the other side of the world.
Now a couple of the questions I'm thinking of is we're just talking about this. Do people use like alt? Do people use card ladder? Or people trying to buy 75% comps? Like, did that ever kind of happen at the show? Or was that just an American thing from your experience?
Yeah, it did still happen a few times, but one of the weirdest things that I noticed is that if like say like you and I are trying to like figure you're trying to buy a card off me, I want to be at 2K, you want to be at like 1500.
Yep.
If we're there, we're probably going to get something done, right? Like we're
Yes.
probably going to meet at like 1750 or something. But
Yep.
if you like a lot of the people that were coming up to the table when I was there, or even just walking around, just like I don't know if it's a cultural difference with negotiation or what, but like if you were at 1500, you were at 1500. Like I like if I came down to 1600, probably still wouldn't take it. Like just like that they were so much more firm with their negotiation, and their offer means so much more than it does in Dallas, which by that I just mean like they say a number, that's where they want to be. And that's not like that's not everybody, but like generally that's one of the bigger negotiation like differences that I noticed, which kind of like not screwed me up on a couple of deals, but like it kept me from getting something done a couple of times just because I wasn't aware of it.
I wonder if that is more of like they actually truly were going to keep that item versus like run to the next dealer and be like, hey, I bought this for 15, give me 16.
There was some of that still, but
was it from Americans, you think, or you think that was just like other collectors or other international dealers who were just like trying to like one up you?
There definitely are some. And like it's not like it's not completely night and day. Like there still are those dealers and those guys even like just like running around like who just bought a card over at the other end of the room for 100 and now they're trying to flip it to you for 120. That still happens all the time, but more so than any other show like that I've experienced is like they just want the card. They want to collect the card. There were people walking around with binders with 6-7 figure collections
In binders.
in binders. Yes.
Oh my god, that's actually terrifying. I don't like that. I don't like that.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Like game used jerseys from like team Reggie Miller Team USA game used jersey. I found he was shoved in a book bag.
I don't like that.
He pulled it out of a plastic bag and showed it to me.
Just that is not
crazy.
That's awesome, but I'd be like, please, like, properly care for this. It made me too anxious. I don't like that, but I love it, but I don't like that. Let me figure out how to phrase that correctly.
No, I get it.
Yeah, that's what a world, dude. You travel across literally travel across the world for sports cards, and I imagine it was financially successful for you because like you're already talking about going back next year.
Yeah. It was a really good show. One of the other things that was kind of funny is that I brought my 52 Mantle with me. I have an SGC4 right now, and if you bring one of those to Dallas, people are going to be like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. But there's like 7 of them in the room.
Yep.
But like a lot of people just have never seen one before. Like I was showing it to people that have like the craziest collections I've ever seen, and they were looking at that the way that I was looking at their Jordan logo man. But like it was just so crazy like how different the inventory is there and like what they have easier access to and like what like they collect. But they just knew right off the bat who that there was a couple people who did not know who Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle was. That was funny, but that's just cultural.
Yeah, and that doesn't really shock me. I mean, I imagine the only baseball that would do well there would be Asian athletes like Hideki Matsui, Shohei Ohtani. Like, I imagine those would do well there if you hit just baseball, right?
Yeah. I had a blue Ohtani Bowman Chrome with me, and that was the one baseball card that kept getting a lot of interest, except for the people who like knew and really understood what the 52 Mantle was. I was getting interest as well, but like, everything else was just filler. Like I know much better how to gear my inventory next year.
So what you're telling me is I have to bring only NPB next year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah, sorry, I'm starting early.
Just Yamamoto across the board. Just
dude. If I like how we're getting into NPB for a second, I put 50 SGC 10 Yamamoto papers on eBay. The day after he signed, or day before he signed, I've sold 30 of them in like 3 days.
Makes sense.
So stupid.
It's so crazy.
I know. I love it. It's the dumbest world, but Tyler, anything else you want to talk through? Like any New Year's resolutions, hobby wise, or anything to keep in mind for next year, or like anything else you want to touch on that we didn't have a chance to?
Not particularly. No.
Listen,
there's a couple ones that I bought in Hong Kong that I'm probably gonna keep for. Like this one, I'm probably going to keep for PC. Which he's not even really my PC, but I've always loved him. But picking this up was really fun. It's Blake Griffin's NT logo, man.
Oh, so it's the 1-1 rookie.
It's number to 5 actually. But it's a True Gem Plus.
Is it game worn?
No, it's event worn. But
okay, I was gonna say
it's I don't know. That's just one that like I saw and I'm like I've always liked him, but like. I usually wouldn't keep something like that, but like I saw it, I was like, all right, that's super cool. But
I mean, I have to imagine that was what, $500, maybe $1,000 at the most. Like
it was like 3,200. There was comps, but like there was comps on the other ones that have sold, yeah. But
holy shit! I mean, all right, that shows what I know. But hey, go figure. Listen, you gotta find the one guy who wants it. I guess it was.
Apparently, it was
I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen, nothing wrong with that. You're gonna keep it.
They're rubbing off on me. I'm picking up stuff that I don't even really care what it cost. But.
Dude, I mean, you're a collector. How dare you in this economy?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, right.
But listen, Tyler, thank you so much for joining. It's pretty crazy. We're at the end of 2023. I think looking back on the year, it was a lot of highs, some lows financially, but like that's just sports cards in general. It's still better than, dude. I remember in 2017, I was working at a shitty social media. I was working at a shitty marketing company. I made $17,000, I think, in sales. I think it was $17,000 in sales in like 2017. I'm like, oh man, I did awesome. Like there are deals now these days where I've sold more than that, and I'm like, oh yeah, this year was terrible. I did so bad. Like. Keeping perspective, being humble, and just being real with yourself, like, will get you much farther. This year was great. I think for next year, card wise, I don't know what the goal is. I know podcast wise, I want this podcast to be top 75 in the US. We peaked at 115, 125 for a couple of days. I wanted to consistently be in the top 100, which. Hey, listen, if you're watching or listening at this point in the show, you are helping to contribute to that. And all I can say is thank you. So on that note, thank you guys for watching or listening. Next week, maybe we'll have Kai back and it'll be a whole new year of probably me saying stupid things. Thank you guys for watching and we'll see you next time.